Hello. So, I'm gonna be reading some more creepypasta today. I'm Wizard Cutie 888. Please subscribe and follow whatever I'm trying to do here. So we're gonna be starting to read A Frog in the Terrarium. Not sure exactly what is happening, but this is gonna be my first read, and hopefully it's gonna be your first first read or listen. Let's start this up. Zoe had not left her apartment in almost 4 months. The last time had been a Thursday, a trip to their primary physician to check up on a worrying rash that was developing on her calf. Her father had given her a ride. She had to stare at the patterns attached into the office floor while talking to her doctor to stop herself from dissolving. She had made it there and back to her safe place. She had called that a victory. Saddle pressed against her windows in the dark, the city noise, a low and constant reminder of how many people were out there, moving through spaces she could not accompany. Her appointment was the right size. Everything she needed came to her. Groceries through an app, medications through the mail, her entire professional life through a laptop, and a broadband connection. She had worked for Divicor for 5 years and had never met a single Kellogg in the person. Her supervisor communicated through email and the occasional voicemail. Her quarterly reviews happened on voice calls. This was fine. This was the arrangement. She was good at her job, kept to herself, and the world kept its distance. Most days that felt like enough. She was brushing her teeth when the knock came. She froze. The brush stopped moving. The knock came again. 2 flat impacts against the front door, patient and even. She rinsed her mouth and stood very still in the bathroom doorway for a moment, running through the list of things it could be. It was almost 10 o'clock at night. Deliveries did not come at 10 o'clock at night. She crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Nothing. No one. Just the dim yellow of the hallway light. She opened the door. The cardboard box sat on the welcome mat, roughly the size of a microwave. Her name was on it. Her address. No return address, no shipping label, no package of any kind. Just her name in a plain black print, centered on the top flat like a title. She looked down the hallway in both directions. Empty. She did not want to bring it inside. She stood there for almost a few minutes, weight shifting between her feet before she crouched and lifted it. It was lighter than she expected, and there was something inside it. She could hear it. A faint and irregular movement, something like a rustling in the undergrowth. She carried it to the kitchen table and cut the tape with scissors. Inside the box, packed with no padding or material of any kind, sitting directly against the cardboard, was a terrarium, glass-sided, maybe 20 inches long, with a mesh lid. Inside the terrarium was a layer of dark soil, a few flat rocks and sticks, leaves, and a frog. It was sitting very still on the largest rock and molted brownish-green, ordinary looking from the front. Then she tilted her back and saw the back. There was an eye in it. set into the skin between the frog's shoulders blades, flesh with the surface, and something that looked like a human eye. The iris was a pale gray-green, the scara threaded with fainted pink veins. The skin around it gathered in soft folds on either side, folds that moved slightly when the frog breathed, rising and falling like lids without lashes, the edges smooth and continuous with the rest of its back, as though whatever was beneath had simply grown there and the skin had learned to accommodate it. She stared at it for a long time. The eye did not move. The pupil was fixed, slightly dilated, pointing at nothing. She decided it was grass, a prosthetic maybe, or some elaborate prank. Someone had implanted a very convincing artificial eye into the animal and left it on the doorstep for reasons she could not begin to organize. It was strange, it was cruel to the frog, and it was something she would sort out in the morning. She would call someone, a vet, or a police, or someone. She was reaching for the mesh lid to look closer when her eyes moved. It shifted, slowly, the pupil dragging from one side to the other until she found her. The skin folds around it and tightens. The eyelid blinks. A full, deliberate blink. The upper fold pressed down and drawing back up. When it opened again, it was still looking at her, directly at her, with what she could only register as attention. She shoved the lid back onto the terrarium, carrying the whole thing back to the front door and putting it outside on the mat. Her hands were shaking. She went back to the kitchen, stood at the sink, grabbed the counter, and breathed through her nose until the worst of it was past. Then she called her father. He arrived in 20 minutes. She watched from the peephole before she opened the door. Even then she kept the chain on for a second, just to look at his face and confirm it was actually him. "Don't bring it inside," she said. "Please." He looked at the box on the mat, then at her. He nodded and went to crouch over it. She left the door open a few inches and stood back. She heard him open the box, heard and paused. Heard him say quickly, "What the hell?" Then louder, "Dear God, what is this thing?" He came inside and she closed the door behind him. He sat at the kitchen table. She sat across from him, and he looked at her with an expression she recognized, the one he used when he was trying to seem calmer than he was for her benefit. "It's real?" he said. "The frog is real?" "I know." "And the eye?" "I know." He rubbed his face with both hands. He said he'd never seen anything like it, that it looked like it had just almost been there, like it has grown that way. They sat with that for a moment. Zoe's knees was bouncing under the table. They talked it through and arrived at what felt like the only reasonable next step. He would take it home. In the morning, he would bring it to the veterinarian, or at least call one, and try to get some explanations for what they were looking at. Some kind of genetic thing, an experiment, something. He left with the box under his arm. She watched from the window until his car was gone from the parking lot below. She went to bed, laying on her back. She looked at the ceiling and thought about the way the fold of the skin had tightened during the blink, the brief and terrible wrongness of it. She did not sleep for a long time. When she finally did, it was shallow and offered her nothing. She called her father at 8 in the morning. The phone rang 7 times before going to voicemail. She waited 10 minutes and called again. Voicemail. She set the phone on the counter, watched it for a second, then told herself it was fine. He was in with the vet. He had left his phone in the car. He was in the shower. Something. He would call back. She called Mercy. Hey, I need to talk to someone, she said hurriedly with Mercy picked up. Something happened last night. Mercy listened without interrupting, which was one of the things Zoe valued most about her. When Zoe finished, Mercy was quiet for a moment before saying it sounded like something out of a nightmare. She said she'd come by after work. She said not to spiral. Zoe thanked her, hung up, and opened her laptop to get some hours in. It was the kind of morning that required routine. She pulled up DeVour's system, started with the operations account, re-selection she'd been working through the day before, and felt the floor drop out from under her. She typed the figure 3 times. She refreshed the page. She pulled the transaction log and scrolled back through the previous 48-hour, methodical and careful the way she did everything, and found nothing that explained it. $6,240,000 gone. No flag transfer, no matched withdrawals in the record she had access to, no conspiring entries anywhere in the ledger. There one day, gone overnight, and as though it had simply stopped existing. Her hands were very still on the keyboard. Outside, Settle went about its morning. She picked up her phone to call her father again, but the call went nowhere. She had sat alone in her apartment with the transaction log open on the screen, and the memory of that gray-green eye watching her from inside the terrarium. She could not decide which of those things frightened her more. Suddenly it dawned on her that she was going to have to do the thing she hated most. She was going to have to talk to a lot of people about this. Zoe sat on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabins, her phone in both hands, and tried to breathe. The breathing techniques her psychologist had given her was 4 counts in, 5 counts hold, 6 counts out. She made it through 2 cycles before her chest tightened. So she abandoned it and just sat there, letting the worst of her anxiety move through her. Then she stood up and called her supervisor. His name was Gerlin Puth. She had spoken to him before 30 times in 5 years, almost by phone, always briefly, always about numbers. She had prepared that she was going to say before she dialed, written bullet points on a notepad, and she pressed record on her phone before the call connected. He picked up on the 3rd ring and said her name with mild surprise, as though she were an extravagant family member that had finally decided to get in touch. She told him about the missing money. She kept her voice level and followed the bullet points. $6,240,000 absent from the operation account as of this morning. No corresponding transfers to the record she had access. Transfer logs clean on its face. She told him the account number, the figure, and the date of the last confirmed balance. Her hands were shaking badly enough that she had set the phone on the counter and used the speaker. Gerald was quiet for a moment after she finished. Then he said it would check the accounts himself and get back to her. She asked if he believed her. He said it would check the accounts. She got off the phone and stood on the counter until her hands settled. There was a faint tremor still in her fingers when she opened her laptop. The result of speaking to someone she barely knew. She hated the way her body turned every conversation with anyone other than her dad or Mercy into a fight or flight response. She started pulling transactions. 6 months of records, every line item, every transfer in and out of the account she had access to. She copied everything into the spreadsheet and started tagging and sorting, building a picture of what normally looked like so that unnormal would stand out against it. It was miraculous work. It was a kind of work she was good at. The anxiety receded to the background hum while her hands were moving and her mind had something to hold. She drafted an email to each member of the Devicor board of directors. She wrote it carefully. It kept the tone factual and documented. Attached the transition log, noted that she had reported the discrepancy to Girl Path at 9:14 in the morning and recorded the call. She was thorough because some part of her had already done the math on how this might look. The accountant who discovered the missing money, the one who accessed the records, the one who works alone from home and no colleagues to account for her hours or her character. She sent the email and went back to the transactions. By noon, she had been through 3 months of data and found nothing obvious. She ordered lunch, a sandwich, soup, something easy. She heard the knock on the door 20 times later and went to answer it without thinking. She opened the door. Her bag of food was sitting on the welcome mat. Underneath it, serving as a kind of shelf, was the cardboard box. She grabbed the bag, pulled it through the gap, and shut the door hard. She stood in the entryway with the bag in her hand and her heart going very fast. She called her father, voicemail. She called again, voicemail. She called a third time. This time, when the voicemail picked up, she left a message, her voice coming out tighter than she intended, telling him to please call her back, that the box was back at her doorstep, that she was worried about him, that she needed to know he was okay. He would not have left the box on her doorstep. He had taken it with him. That was the last thing she had seen. Him walking to his car with it under her arm. He would not have returned it and left without saying anything to her. That was not something he would do. She called the police. It was worse than the call with Girl. The dispatcher transferred her to someone who asked her to explain the situation from the beginning, and she tried, but the words came out in wrong order and she had to stop and restart twice. She could hear herself losing coherence, and the awareness made it worse. She got the important part out. Father, 61, had not answered his phone since last night, had been in possession of something unusual that had now appeared on her doorstep. She was concerned for his safety. The officer taking the report asked for her father's address. She gave it. He asked for her father's full name and date of birth. She gave it too. He asked if there was any reason her father might be unreachable, travel, work, anything like that. She said no. She said he always answered. The officer asked if she was all right. His voice had shifted tightly, taking on a careful, guilty quality. She told him she had crippling social anxiety, and the phone calls were difficult for her, and that she was giving him the most accurate information she had. He told her someone would follow up. She hung up, sat with her untouched food at the kitchen table, and looked at the bag without opening it. The soup was probably being cold. She unwrapped the sandwich and took a bite, but her body rejected the whole idea. She put it down, covered it back up, and sat there. The box was on her doorstep. The frog was in the box, presumably. She did not know that she was supposed to do with it. She would wait for Mercy. Mercy would come for work. After work, she would not have to face the box alone. They would figure out what to do together. Maybe they would drive it somewhere. Maybe Mercy would take it, so he did not need to decide anything right now. They knocked at her door. She went to the people. The hallway was empty. The box sat on the mat. She turned away from the door. The knocking started again immediately. She went back to the people. Empty hallway. She stood there for a full 30 seconds watching nothing move. She stepped back. The knock came before she had fully turned around. She spun, pressed her eyes to the people, and saw nothing. She stayed there, pressed against the door, breathing through her mouth. A minute passed. 2. She stepped back very slowly, watching the people as though she could see through it from across the room. Knocking. She kept the chain latched and cracked the door 2 inches. The air from the hallway came through, slightly colder. She leaned toward the gap. "I will call the police," she said. Her voice came out sturdily, then she fell. "Whoever is out there needs to stop. I will call the police right now." Nothing answered. She looked down through the gap of the box, and that was when she saw it. A folded piece of paper, tapped on the top flap that had not been there before. She reached through the gap, pulled the paper free, shut the door, locked it, and put the chain back on. She unfolded the note at the kitchen table. The handwriting was neat and small. It said, "Take good care of these frogs, Zoe, and Divicor will get its 6 million back." She read it thrice. Frog? Plural? She looked at the box. She had not opened it. She did not want to open it. She thought about the eye moving in the kitchen light and slow, deliberate drag of the pupil finding her face. She looked at the box. She had not opened it. She did not want to open it. She thought about the eye moving in the kitchen light and slowly deliberate drag of the pupil finding her face. Oh my gosh. Mercy came through the door with her coat still on, her key in her hand, and looked at the box, the mat. She picked it up and brought it inside to the kitchen center. After opening it, both women certainly looked into the box. 2 frogs now, side by side on the flat rock, motionless, each with the same gray-green eyes set into the skin of its back, the same smooth lids without lashes, the same faded veining in the sclera. The second eye was identical to the first, and everything else they had come from the same source. Mercy leaned close to the glass. The eyes did not move toward her. They were both angled slightly to the left, toward Zoe, who was standing near the refrigerator. Zoe took a step to the right. Both eyes shifted. She took a step back toward the hallway, pulled the kitchen wall between herself and the terrarium. She heard Mercy say from the kitchen that they were still pointed her way, the wall. Mercy straightened up and looked at her with an expression caught between frustration and concern. She said they were without question the freakiest thing she had ever seen in her life. Then she said that the note was another matter entirely, that what it described was extortion or blackmail or something close enough that it didn't matter that you called it. And Zoe needed to have it on record with the police regardless of the frogs. Oh my god. At least they're keeping record of things. But honestly, I'm gonna take a break and pause here, and if you want me to continue reading, let me know. You can read this by yourself on creepypasta.com. Again, my name is WizardQD888. If you want more, please let me know. Thank you for listening. Sorry, I'm doing these in short reads, but my throat is like dying, and I've been reading so much that I just read in my head usually, so I don't really talk that much, and my throat's like, what are you doing? So, but I will definitely continue more stories or do the same stories. You just gotta let me know what you want. I may do some Pokemon a little bit later today. If I don't kill me. But I'm gonna go to bed and, have a good night. If I can close it.